Hi, I'm Dennis Varni. This is my garage, my warehouse actually, and I'm going to show you around and show you the cars I've got and show you what's happening and all my junk that's car related. So this is the shop. It's a working shop. And with all the memorabilia around it, so on. So hats from different rallies and different things, and spark plug collection over here, because I got crazy and started collecting spark plugs one day and became world famous for one day, and at Hershey back in the time that I used to go back there, and different pictures. This is a Topolino, 1952, Woody, and this thing originally made 49 horsepower. No, pardon me. It originally made, I think, 16 or 29 horsepower, something like that. It's an overhead one. And we put a turbo on it. Now it makes 49 horsepower. I can go from 45 miles an hour now to 55 or 60, but I have no brakes to stop it. But it's exciting. So that's the little motor in it. Those were perfect economy cars in Italy back in the days after the war. So I have the radiator put in it, and then she's ready to run. I had painted on the side La Dolce Vita, meaning the sweet life, and the canoe I had made for it from a canoe company in Montana to be proportionate to the car, so that when you looked inside the car and looked up at it, you could see all the nice wood inside of it, and old period suitcases and so on. But I just love these little small cars. This is a billboard that we built. I won the show in 1992 with the Grand National Roadster Show, and there was some paper available from the billboard company, so I got it and we built this framework around it. In fact, there was one at the Petersen Museum many years ago that had a billboard up with a motorcycle police officer behind it, and so on, and I always loved that, so I made the catwalk like that and the boards, and then we built this framework for this billboard because it was kind of special to me. So, and this building really started as just this area right here, but as people moved out, tenants moved out, I cut holes in it and kept getting bigger, so I expanded my collection from that point. So this is another Topolino here. This is a 37 Topolino. This was the first of the series of little Fiats, and it also has a turbo on it. And we're not finished with this car. This is another little one. The motor in it, and the radiators behind it. This is a flathead, that's an overhead. They didn't have water pumps on them. I had to put a water pump on it and some other things. And Ryan Faulkner built the motors for me, who built the motor for my Streamliner also. Engine builder that worked on Indy cars and so on, back in the days. So. Motorcycles, Benelli, Ducati. This is a Wizard. Just fun things, to have. So this is a sliding door that goes across here, so I can close off an area. So you don't know anything's back here or whatever, but I then put pictures on it. And then I used to have my big truck in here, so then I moved it back in here, and so this is the rest of the stuff. This is Uncle Harry. He's my guard at night. I got to tell you a story about him. There's an Izetta in the back, and he used to sit inside the Izetta. And one night, I guess a mouse got in here or something, and it set off the motion detector. And he was in the car, sitting in the seat with a smile on his face, and the police came. My son-in-law had a building that the alarm was going off all the time. And so they would call me. He wouldn't answer, and I kept hanging up. So they called a friend of mine that I had named on the second list. He gets down here at 3 o'clock in the morning. He calls me, and he's here, and the cops are all with their guns out and all this stuff. And they go inside, and they see this guy, and he's sitting back over here on this side with the inside the car. They go clink clink with their shotguns. Get out of the car! And luckily, this guy says, "No, it's a dummy. It's a dummy." And it was Uncle Charlie there. So he's on the Gilera. There. This is a 6-cylinder Chevrolet motor that's in my Streamliner, and they didn't come with this hole in them. That's at 230. I threw a rod, so that's what happens to them. It's not always perfect, you know. This is a 61 Falcon that I put the 63 front end on it, and brought it to Africa because the Falcons were the base or the platform for Mustangs in '65. So I wanted to do a Falcon because nobody had done those, and we raced this in Africa for 6,500 miles, my wife and I, and we won the rally. It's got a small block Ford in it, and it's got all Home and Moody kind of parts on it for the day. So I wanted to kind of make it period, and lightened the hood up and the trunk and did all that kind of stuff that they used to do in the day. I went back to Home and Moody and talked to the guys that built the Falcons that ran the race in those days, and they showed me different things that they did to the cars from drawings. So I came home, and I wanted the Home and Moody manifold and all this stuff, and I put it all on. Anyway, it worked fine for me, and a guy from Switzerland saw my car. He was driving a Volvo, and he just fell in love with it. I said, "Well, drive it." So he drove it, and he called from Africa to the guy that found this body for him. He says, "Find me one. I gotta have one of these cars." He had it built, had the same engine builder that I had from Los Angeles build the motor for it, but he used Edelbrock parts instead of Home and Moody. He got 40 more horsepower than my motor, and we were the exact same motors completely. But it's been a great car. We're going to go to Mongolia in 2021 in it, my wife and I, and we're going to run 5,500 miles in a rally there. And we went to Argentina with it. I came in 13th there, but the first ride was Africa, and it was fantastic. You know, great ride, and it worked fine. I wore it out, and so I had to go get another one. And so when I went in for the second shoulder, I'm there on the table, and I said, "Wait a minute, before you give me the sleeping juice, you know, from the anesthesiast," I said, "Can you get the doctor over here?" And I said, "You know, this one you're going to take out, what are you going to do with it?" And he said, "Well, we're going to send it to Berkeley, and they're going to analyze it, and, you know, see how everything." I said, "No, wait a minute, did I pay for it?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then I want it." He goes, "What are you going to do with it?" And I said, "I'm going to make a gear shift knob out of it." And so in this Falcon is my shoulder. And that's the top part of it, the stainless steel ball.
Oh, cool.
And the shifter is the... So I'm really close to this car.
Yeah.
This is a 47 Sportsman. I found this car in Alameda, California. I'm the third owner of the car. The fellow that the son that I bought this car from, all this stuff was period on the car. The heads were on it, the carburetors, 2 carburetors. And what's unique about this Sportsman, the fellow, the second owner of the car, went ahead and varnished the wood with a heavy wax, so that's all the original wood. And so when we took it apart, I repainted it. But these are not stock. They would have never had this. And this was a J.C. Whitney add-on back in the day, and I decided it was all leaded here, and I said, you know, I'm leaving those on because it's kind of, it was with the car, you know, so I left this all the same, even though it's hot rodded. It's got a Mercury crank in it, so it works pretty well. When we took the wood apart, there was a Johnson on this side that had signed the wood, and on that side it was a Henry something, I forgot his last name, and they'd signed their names before they put them on. And in the back, I guess I can say this, you can do what you want, but Lupin Lodge is one of the oldest nudist colonies in California, or actually in the United States. Started in 1932, and it's still functioning in the Los Gatos Mountains. And I always wanted to have a car that, like, they came from the nudist colony and came down and picked the people off the train from San Francisco and brought them up there. And I kept, when I had this plate made, it's not original, but I told people that this was the car they came down with. The town that they came to denied them to come down because they were always naked, you know, to pick up the people. So it just kind of a fun story, you know. But, anyway, that's the Sportsman. Great car, runs well, it's got everything in it. This is a 55 Chrysler. This was the first of the muscle cars before Chevrolet, before all of them. It's a 300 car. It's dual carbureted. Runs great, just a big cruiser. You know, this is Americana at its best. Solid metal, you know, it's thick, heavy. That hood is like the Fort Knox of hoods. This is a 51 Hudson. I bought this to race, actually, but I liked the Nash, which was uglier than this, so I'm going to get rid of this. But for the Mexican race down in Mexico, fun piece. These were in the 50s were the step downs that ran all the NASCAR races, and were pretty exciting in their day. You know. What else can I tell you? So this is the car that I currently race down in Mexico. In the La Carrera I have run with this car. It's a 49 Nash. It's all original motor and so on, but just hopped up. So they have an original class you can run. You can do whatever you want, but you got to stay in the parameters of that period. So safety-wise, it has disc brakes, it has a roll bar in it, and so on. It goes about 130 miles an hour, but it's really the turtle, you know, of their races, you know, because they're going 160, 170 miles an hour. But a fun piece to go once a year and play. And the Healy is an interesting car. I was in a Mercedes that in Australia, in a rally over there, and they actually had a race section that they were doing, and I wasn't part of that. I was just in this rally, and there was these Healys, and they were fantastic, and they were nice looking, and they ran great. They were fast, and so I wanted to know who at the end of this thing at the dinner, you know, who the drivers were, who the owners, and they introduced me to the Healy factory in Australia. At the time, our dollar was about 25 cents stronger, 26 cents stronger. It's about like it is now, back 10, 15 years ago. And I said to the guy, I said, I'd really like to have one of these. And I said, but the only thing I want different is a little headrest, because I like the D-type Jags, and they had it on it. So they did this whole car in Australia with a Westlake head on it, and put the headrest on it. And it's really interesting because they did such a great job. This is all aluminum formed, but it fits inside of each other. It's as you go up and down, you can see that it only limits the distance you can go up, but there it is. But great little car. My wife and I were in a rally in it, and I always had the windshield down. And we got into, and we were in Utah, and this storm was coming, black clouds, and we had to go under a tree, and I had the umbrellas out over us, and the guy came out of his house and says, come in the house, get out of the rain, which we did. And I went back out in the rain and put the windshield up because they fold up. And my wife looked at me and says, you mean the windshield could have been up all this time? She'd been driving for 3 days with this air blowing in her face, you know. So it's a great little car, little tractor. These are my race cars, or some of them. The belly tank is an old fuel tank off a P-38. It was on the cover of Hot Rod back in the 60s. This one here, and I went 265 in this car, and then retired it. I was always chasing a record. There was always 15 miles an hour faster. Fellow from down in Santa Barbara area, Seth Hammond, had always a record. We always had fun chasing him. But this is the belly tank. You were the first one there. You were ahead of the wheels in this car. So when you sat in this thing, you were ahead of the wheels. So you got in by taking this out and you laid down. So when you looked out, you couldn't see your front wheels. You didn't, you just knew where you were going, but you were the first one there, before the rest of the car got there. But so this is an original tank. So then from this, well, I got in the 2 Club in a 32 Ford Roadster, a hot rod. And the only thing I really wanted to do, I really didn't want to go fast. I just wanted to go 200 in a street roadster, which I did. And I went 225, got in the Club. And I had partners, and I could only drive every 4 years. So I sold my interest in that and got into the belly tank. And then from there, I said, well, I want to go faster. And the Streamliner came, which is, that's the 6-cylinder motor you saw with the hole in the side. And I've retired this as a 217. I'll open the hood on it. We had the world record in 2012 at 334.260. This one at least had a nose in front of it. You could see where you were going. And it was a great ride. A lot of fun. Enjoyed it. And it was a 200, the interesting thing, it was twin turbo, 1,300 horsepower, and it was a 6-cylinder Chevrolet. And then these are 2 historical cars. This one had a Triumph motor in it. He was the first, this Louis Bossinio, was the first Stanford heart transplant person. And he built this car, and I had a fellow named Henry Rossi restore it and put it back together. And that's the motor that's in it, a Triumph motor. He went 122 miles an hour, I think, in this one, back in the day, in the 60s. This one is E.T. Mag's car. It's an aluminum car with a McCulloch motor in it, and it went 164 miles an hour in the day. I don't know how they drove them, but they were just kind of cute and fun. And the car above us is the Herta car, which was going to run against Mickey Thompson in the days in the 60s, but unfortunately the fellow passed away in the car from an accident. An accident that didn't hurt the car, but hurt him. And it was at the Harris Museum for a long, long time, and they decided to get rid of it. I haven't finished the car or restored it yet. There's the motor that goes in it. It's all period correct. This went 300 and something miles an hour at one point. And you know, when there's a gas crunch, you always got to ride something that's saving a little money on gas. So I had Randy up in Oregon take my Vespa scooter and tune it up. It's a 2003 Vespa that he cut away all the stuff and made me dress up so I look right, you know, when I'm going down the road in it. So and you open the door and you get in. It's real civilized, you know. It's a fun thing. I should take the wax out of here, but I was cleaning it the other day. So that's a Vespa scooter underneath all that. This axle is from a 1915 Franklin, and it's the same axle that's under this car, which is a 1924 T that I built to run the Great Race back in '95, and the head's off it right now. But we had an accident in it, a head-on accident, and it broke the axle, and I kept the axle and welded all these little things on to hang all these coats from different rallies on it. So this is the actual axle out of that car, and then I found another 15 Franklin axle to put under it. And so I hang the coats and different things on it from different rallies. But why I'm saying that is I want to show you this. This is a great sweater. When my daughter was in college in Texas, I went by this store when she was graduating, and I saw this sweater, and I went, wow, isn't that neat? But if you really look at it, it's a drive-in, and they're showing a Western movie at a drive-in, and you're sitting inside the car, and you're kind of in the back seat or outside the car looking through the car, and you see the people watching the movie, but there's the top of a clothing coming off, and they're in the front seat of good old drive-in. So I always loved that, and then I'm too old to wear it now, so I can't do that. So these are just shirts and so on. These cars here, what happens when you get stupid and you get more cars than you need, they go up on lifts, and then it's like a funeral home. You know, you don't take them down that often. But there's a GTA up there that's a race car. This is a Zagato double bubble car. I found this in San Francisco. An attorney told me about it, that this fella had it. He was the second owner, and he drove it and parked it in 1962, I think it was. He bought it in '59, and he didn't know what he had, but it was a Zagato-bodied little 600 Fiat Alfa Romeo. I mean, Abarth Zagato-bodied double bubble, and they're cute little cars, and I love them. I haven't restored it yet. That's a GTA. It's up on top with the yellow nose on it. The next car is a Frontenac race car, and it was made by Frontenac, which was Arthur Chevrolet, who was like Offenhauser and the rest of them in the days in the 20s that built speed equipment for Model Ts. And they decided to build a whole car, and this car was owned by Ed Eskandarian. I think he was the second owner of the car, and I haven't finished the motor in it yet. And it's just a new acquiry. In fact, I had to buy that car to get the head for my other yellow one. So let's continue upstairs here. That's a Multipla, a Fiat Multipla, 1962 or 1. And I put all the suitcases on it. I went to pick up my mother when she was alive in this car and take her to lunch one day in it. And she stood outside her house, and I pull up in this thing, and she looks at me and she says, well, why do you have all that writing on the side? She says, you know, Dad was never in the delicatessen business. He was a baker in Italy. And I said, well, you know, I didn't like the word bakery. I said, I thought the prosciutto would be a better name for it, you know. And so I put my dad's full name on it, where he was born. You have to kind of go in here, look at it. And the telephone number is his date of birth. And thought it was kind of fun. But it was funny when she stood there with this dumb look on her face and said, well, that's not, Dad didn't have a delicatessen. He was a baker. So, and I put all the suitcases on it like we're traveling, you know. And that's got an 850 in it. So I can go at least 65 in that, you know, go down the freeway. This is a board track car. 1920, it's a recreation of the cars they would have run on the board tracks, the wooden tracks. It's got a Duesenberg engine in it. It's what they call a walking beam. It's 4 cylinders. It's got 427 Chevrolet Pistons in it. And it's a great car. I like these old monsters. It's a thump, thump, thump car, you know. I take it on rallies, so on. This is a little 52 Renault. When I was doing rallies over in Europe, I used to see these things running in France. And I found this in Los Angeles, and it was a convertible, but it didn't get out of its way. So I put a blower on it. Now it goes down the road pretty good. And this has this little supercharger on it over here. And originally, I think Porsche was the designer of these cars for the French in their day. So this is a little supercharger off. Actually, these superchargers were made originally for the spy planes in the Cold War days to operate the camera section of the planes, because they got distortion in the plastic off the plane, so they needed to do something with the air inside there to compromise this distortion they had, and this company came out with this little blower, and then from there they start using them on Volkswagens and start selling them. So I modified one to put it on here with a Weber carburetor. So it's my Renault car. I have another Izetta, watch your head, Izetta up here. And that's where Uncle Charlie was sitting in when the police came in, you know, smiling at everybody, and I thought they were going to shoot the car. I'll talk about this. This is an old trailer that I was, for years after this trailer, this guy had, he was a trailer collector, and I redid the inside of it to make it look like a matching book paper, and had Ming's dressing room painted on it, because this is the Flash Gordon days of the 50s. Ming was kind of like the Darth Vader of today's modern space people. So this was his so-called dressing room that I created for him. He didn't know he had. This is a 46 Woody that my grandson and I are doing, Travis Ray, and he just graduated from high school. He's been working on it, and we got this thing from the bare frame up, and we're getting ready to put the dash in it and so on, but someday we'll finish that car. This is an interesting car. This is a Rolling Bones car. These guys are in New York. They're great artists. It's got a 42 Packard grill shell on it. It's all period except for the torsion bars on the car. It's got a DeSoto, 54 DeSoto motor in it. And this car, I'll open up the door and show you the inside. It's kind of fun. The seats, I was in Iceland, and they eat reindeer there, and so they sell the hides, and so two of the reindeer that worked for Santa Claus, Splitzer and Donner, they changed their their occupation, and now they're my seats in my car. So I don't want kids to hear that because they would get upset, but they're reindeer. And what's interesting about this paint, I was at the Petersen Museum and I saw this beautiful Bugatti that was there that the Shah owned, and I loved the blue on the car, just loved it. But I didn't want that shiny color, so I got the matching color, and then I had it, the Rolling Bones painted this car, and they're just magic at it, and I wanted it so it all looked wrinkled and so on. And then I put the Earl Shives $29.95 decal on it, had that made so that you can just kind of a little humor thing. This car here, this 29, is my car that won the Grand National Roadster Show in 1992. It was my second hot rod that I ever had. I built the car back in the original car back in the 80s, or 70s actually, and then drove it for 50,000 miles and then redid it and had Boyd Coddington finish the car, and Ron Covell did the body work on it. It's all torsion barred. It's got a, see if I can show you the motor in it. I have to open it up. So it's got a 406-inch Hawk Chevrolet motor in it that John Butera originally designed to go for Indy and for sprint car racing. That didn't work very well, but I always good friend of John's, and so I got one of the blocks and we put a little designer blower on it, and it runs real well. It's all torsion bar, and when I was doing this car, the front windshield of this car is kind of interesting because Ford originally had a straight windshield here. So if you look at this windshield, it's curved, and it's out of a 1987 Chevrolet truck. We cut it out of the center. It had the right arc, just enough to give it a little modern look to it. And when I did the gauges in the car, I went to a lady. I wanted Smith gauges. I wanted a 200-mile-an-hour speedometer. And Smith was the only one that made them for the GT40s at the time. And I said, but I want matching gauges that say Smith on them. And she says, well, no, we'll just take VDO gauges and we'll make new faces and put Smith. And I said, well, wait a minute. If you can put Smith on them, you can put my name on them. So all my gauges have my name on them. And then I did them in Italian. And I didn't know for the boost gauge what to do in Italian. So I asked my mom at the time, how the heck do you, what's the word for, for boost? And she said, well, turbo. And I said, well, that didn't sound good. So I put busta on it. So I made up my own word, and that's what's on there. And once in a while I get to step on it, and it'll light up the boost gauge a little bit. That's a 52 Caddy, just original Caddy. It's just for parades. Kind of a fun car, big cruiser. It's the other American car. This is a 27 Model T that we put a 28 grill shell on it, and it's kind of a transition car. I use this for drag racing in the sand at the Race of Gentlemen's and so on. And I call it the Buckaroo car because I've got cowhide upholstery in it, And in the back, it's got a tractor gas tank. It's got a 28 Chrysler dash in it, and in the trunk, I've got a tractor gas tank, and then I have this little green tank that I put the high octane fuel in it when I'm racing it, so that we can get a little bit more power out of the motor. So this is a Yellowstone bus. It's an original bus from Yellowstone Park. It's a 706. And when my kids were younger, my wife was taking all the kids to school because they stopped the bus services and all that. So I said, well, you know, if you're taking all the kids and you're taking the neighbors' kids, you know, why don't we buy a bus and we can make some money at this, you know? And so as the kids got out of school or they didn't want to be with mom or dad, you know, taking them to school, I was still, you know, fascinated with a bus. So I went looking for buses, and I found I wanted a convertible bus, and Yellowstone had these rollback convertible tops that they used to tour the people around in, and ended up buying it back in the late 70s, almost, I think 79 or whatever. And I bought it. It had a Continental motor in it. I went for a ride with 14 people in it. We went 45 miles an hour up a hill and down the other side of the hill because they were geared so slow for the park. I said, that's it. And immediately tore the motor out of it and put a 454 in it. And it's been to Bar Harbor, Maine. It's been up to Michigan in the day, and it runs beautifully. It's no air conditioning in it, you know, but it's 4 doors, and it's a great vehicle. I use it for family things. We're going to Idaho in July if this pandemic thing is all done. My family's we're going to a dude ranch. I'm going to pull up in the bus and probably go to Yellowstone in it. And I've been to Yellowstone in it to show them the bus, and they were kind enough to give me the hat and their papers. They had extra, and a pair of boots that the guys would have worn in the days in 1937. So it was really neat. But they didn't like the motor idea, you know, too much. But it works then. This way you could use it. And 8 of us went in this thing in 1980. Well, 3 times we did this across the country to Hershey, and we drove. And the deal was only 8 people in the bus, and every day one guy could say which way we wanted to go. We never stayed on the freeway. We went like this, and we spent all day looking for junk. And then we pull into a hotel and we'd say, we're government employees. We work for Yellowstone Park and we have a government rate. Well, they give us a little discount, you know, and then we'd go on the next day. But, this is all the original interior in it. The only thing that I redid was this front seat because it had a split seat in it. I have the automatic transmission in it, took one pedal out and made the shifter in there. I'll get in from this side. These buses are white, and they sent them to a company in Chicago to put the bodies on, and they were all aluminum. It'll take a minute to start it. Yeah.
Great, yeah.
Okay. This container to the left here is my kids' container because they were filling my garage at home, and I put a container and said, this is yours. All your stuff goes in here, you know. And this is full of car parts, left over from projects that I've done. The Falcon is because I always wanted a Falcon pickup, and if I just own it, then I don't have to do anything, and it's just there. But the exciting project out here is going to be this international step-side van. I just love this thing. I got a Chevrolet motor and transmission that's going to go in it, and I'm going to call it the Cockroach. Cockroach Bakery. I'm going to have it wrapped in that paper, and then I want to go to this famous place called Giftridge up by Watsonville. It has these beautiful pies. I want to buy these pies and put them out there and sell them for $0.05 a piece, a slice, and see if anybody will buy them from the Cockroach Bakery. Just to amuse myself, you know. And it's just there. I've got to take it all apart, but it's one of the projects. So before I leave this earth, I will finish this. And it's got 3 big speakers inside there. You're going to go on the roof, and I got a friend that's got the machine that makes smoke. And it's going to be a Cheech and Chong music playing. And when you open the doors, the smoke's going to come out of it. You know, this is typical of my era of growing up. Yeah. So, So this is some other little junk that we do out here. This is from my daughter. I had some old chain and made a heart for her. And this is a drive shaft out of my Mark II Jag, because I put a Subaru transmission in it. So I used it as we're recycling. This is going to be the post that holds the chain for the heart. Kind of stuff. Oh. And these are there's the motor back there that's going to go in here. But see those speakers back up in there? Mm-hmm. They're going to go on the roof. There's 3 of those big speakers. And this is going to be all vans have to have a parachute. So that's going to be the parachute on it. So that in case the brakes fail, we'll pull a parachute on it. Here's a barbecue area, and this is where the Bay Area Roadsters have their barbecue. And so this barbecue here was I don't know how to boil water, I'm going to tell you that right now. But we got some great guys in the club that know how to, are chefs. But this part here, the names on it, is an old trummel, the horses they used to jump over. So I cut it down, took this barrel that had all these rivets on it, cut that down, and then it needed to get crazy. This is an old drill press. If you had it standing straight up, would be the drill press, but this is what operates the deal. And this is the brake. This is a Model T. It's all parts from different cars, and that's your thing to raise and lower it. And then this is the brake that you put on it. So we just took stuff out of the junk pile and made a barbecue pit. Then they got excited and bought a Wolf Range. The club did, and one of the club members is a roofer, and he built the shed. And so this is our dining area out here with the lights and so on.